The vast emptiness of space surrounded the Caridian fleet. 27 ships drifted slowly, their normally bright engine lights now dim and flickering. On the command bridge of the largest vessel, the Voral, Captain Nara stared at the status reports with growing concern. "How much longer can we maintain life support?" she asked, her four eyes blinking in sequence, a sign of stress among her species. Officer Trell checked the figures again. 14 days at current power levels, Captain. Maybe 16 if we shut down non-essential sections. Captain Nara's gray skin paled slightly. 14 days to find a solution or watch her people, 8,000 refugees, die slowly in the cold vacuum of space. The fleet had been traveling for nearly a year, ever since their homeworld began its final death throes. They had hoped to reach the colony worlds in the Mendari system, but the unexpected gravitational anomaly had changed everything. "The engineering teams have tried everything," said Commander Vex, her second in command. "The propulsion crystals were completely shattered by the anomaly. Without them, we cannot generate the energy needed for faster-than-light travel." Nara nodded grimly. "And our distress signals?" No response, Communications Officer Zereth reported. "This sector appears uncharted. We may be the first to pass through this region." The bridge fell silent. Their situation was dire. The Caridians were not explorers but refugees, carrying what remained of their civilization after their sun had begun to expand unexpectedly. Scientists, families, artists, and workers, the last of their kind, all packed into these failing ships. "Captain," Zereth suddenly straightened at his console. "I'm detecting an unusual signal." Nara moved quickly to his station. "What kind of signal?" "It appears to be communications traffic. A lot of it. Coming from the nearby star system." Zereth's antenna twitched with excitement. The patterns suggest an advanced civilization. Hope and fear battled in Nara's mind. In their long journey, the Caridians had encountered 3 other spacefaring species. None had been friendly. The Voltar had fired upon them immediately. The Drex had demanded payment for safe passage. The Marin had simply ignored their pleas for help. "Could it be the Drex?" Commander Vex asked. Zereth shook his head. "No, the signal patterns are entirely unfamiliar. A species we haven't encountered before." Nara paced the bridge slowly. "We have no choice. Prepare the scout ship. We must investigate." 4 hours later, the fleet's fastest remaining vessel, barely larger than a shuttle, prepared to depart. Pilot Jax ran through the final checks while Science Officer Alara calibrated the sensors. "Remember," Captain Nara told them, "your mission is reconnaissance only. Determine if this species might help us, but do not reveal our full situation, unless absolutely necessary. We cannot risk another Voltar incident." Jax nodded grimly. 3 ships had been lost in that encounter. "May the stars guide you," Nara said, touching her forehead in the traditional blessing. The scout ship departed, its small engines pushing it toward the distant star. Behind it, the Caridian fleet continued to drift, their power reserves dropping with each passing hour. On the scout ship, Ilara monitored the increasing signal traffic as they approached the system. "It's remarkable," she told Jax. "The communications suggest a planet with billions of individuals. Their technology seems less advanced than ours in some ways, yet surprisingly sophisticated in others." Jax kept his focus on piloting. "Can you translate any of it?" "Not yet. Their language patterns are unlike anything in our databases, but I'm detecting regular space traffic in the system. This species has definitely achieved spaceflight." 3 days later, they reached the outer edges of the star system. 8 planets orbited the yellow star, but it was the 3rd planet that captured their attention. Blue and green, teeming with life and artificial satellites. "Look at all those orbital structures," Ilara said in wonder. "They must have hundreds of satellites and stations." A sudden alert sounded. "We're being scanned," Jax reported. "Something is approaching from the 4th planet. Fast." On their view screen, a vessel appeared, sleek and white with blue markings. It was smaller than their largest ships but clearly built for speed and maneuverability. Strange markings on its hull read, USS Dauntless. "They've detected us," Alara said unnecessarily. The alien ship adjusted its course, moving to intercept them. Jax tensed, ready to retreat. "Wait," Alara said. "They're broadcasting something." The communication system crackled with unfamiliar sounds, the alien language. Alara worked frantically at the translation matrix. I think they're greeting us," she said in surprise. The alien vessel now kept pace with them, maintaining a respectful distance. No weapons appeared to be active. "Should we respond?" Jax asked. Alara hesitated, then activated the universal greeting sequence, a mathematical pattern that any advanced species would recognize as artificial and deliberate. The response was immediate. The alien ship transmitted a similar sequence, followed by simple mathematical equations. They're establishing a communication baseline, Alara realized. They want to talk. Over the next several hours, the rudimentary communication developed. The aliens called themselves humans and their planet Earth. Their ship was part of something called United Space Fleet. "Remarkable," Alara said. "They've established a basic translation matrix in just hours. Their computational abilities are impressive." Eventually, simple messages could be exchanged. The humans requested permission to approach closer. After consulting with Captain Nara via long-range communication, Jax agreed. As the human ship drew, alongside they received a visual transmission. On their screen appeared a creature unlike any they had seen. Pinkish tan skin, only 2 eyes, and hair on top of its head. It wore a blue uniform with silver markings. "I am Captain Frank Miller, of the USS Dauntless," the creature said, the translation still rough but understandable. "On behalf of Earth, I welcome you to our solar system." Alara and Jax exchanged glances. The greeting seemed genuine, with none of the hostility they had come to expect from other species. "We are Caridians," Alara replied carefully. "I am Science. Officer Alara. We come in peace." "May I ask your purpose in our system?" Miller asked. Jax and Alara hesitated. Captain Nara had warned them to be cautious, but something about these humans seemed different. "We are scouts," Alara said finally. "Our fleet—" She stopped, unsure how much to reveal. "Your fleet?" Miller prompted. Alara took a deep breath. "Our fleet is stranded, damaged. We were passing through nearby space when we encountered an anomaly that disabled our propulsion systems." Miller's expression changed, showing what they would later learn was concern. "How many ships? How many people are affected?" 27 ships. 8,000 people, Jax said quietly. There was a brief consultation among the humans on their bridge. Then Miller faced them again. "Science Officer Alara, we would like to offer assistance. With your permission, we can rendezvous with your fleet and assess how we might help." Jax stared in disbelief. Alara's antenna quivered with surprise. "You would help us? Strangers?" she asked. Miller seemed confused by the question. "Of course. That's what people do." As the Dauntless prepared to follow them back to the stranded fleet, Alara sent an urgent message to Captain Nara. "We have made contact with a species called humans. They have offered help freely, with no demands. In all our travels, we have never encountered anything like them." The scout ship turned, leading the way back to the waiting fleet. For the first time in many months, they carried something precious with them. Hope. Captain Nara could hardly believe her eyes as the small human vessel approached her fleet. The USS Dauntless looked tiny next to the massive Caridian ships, yet it moved with confidence. On the main screen of the Voral's bridge, Captain Frank Miller's face appeared again, now speaking through a more refined translation system. "Captain Nara, we've completed our initial scans of your fleet. The damage is extensive, but we believe we can help." Nara's 4 eyes blinked in sequence as she studied the human. Their species looked so fragile, soft skin, no protective scales or plates, only 2 eyes. Yet they had offered assistance without hesitation. "Captain Miller, we are grateful, but I must ask, What do you want in return? Miller seemed confused by the question. We don't require payment for humanitarian aid, Captain. That's not how we operate. The Caridian officers exchanged glances. Such behavior defied everything they had experienced in their journey. I've contacted Earth Command, Miller continued. 2 engineering vessels are already en route to our position. They should arrive within 48 hours. In the meantime, we'd like to send over some supplies and technical teams to assess your most critical systems. Nara hesitated. Allowing aliens aboard their vessels went against security protocols. Commander Vex leaned close. Captain, we don't know if we can trust them, he whispered. We have little choice, she replied quietly. Our life support systems will fail long before we can repair the ships ourselves. She turned back to the screen. We accept your offer, Captain Miller. 6 hours later, the first human shuttle docked with the Voral. The airlock cycled, and 5 humans in blue uniforms stepped onto the Caridian ship. Leading them was a woman with dark hair pulled back tightly. Chief Engineer Sofia Martinez, she introduced herself, making the human gesture of extending a hand, then awkwardly pulling it back when she realized the Caridians didn't share this custom. My team is ready to begin work immediately. Nara assigned Officer Trell to escort the humans. As they walked through the ship's corridors, many Caridians stopped to stare. Few had ever seen aliens up close, and none had seen humans before. In engineering, Martinez examined the damaged propulsion crystals with growing interest. Fascinating technology, she said, scanning the shattered components. These crystals channel energy in ways our science has only theorized about. Trell watched nervously. Can you repair them? Martinez shook her head. No, we don't have the ability to recreate these. But I think we might be able to adapt some of our technology to work with your systems. While the engineers worked, another human team led by a man named Alan Reyes distributed emergency supplies to the refugee ships. They brought food synthesizers, portable power units, and medical supplies. On the smallest ship, which housed mostly families with children, a human doctor named Lisa Wright discovered something unexpected. She was treating a young Caridian with respiratory distress when she noticed the child was fascinated by her hair. Would you like to touch it? She asked gently. The child reached out tentatively, touching the strange strands. Soon, other children gathered around, their fear of the aliens forgotten. By the end of the day, Wright had Caridian children following her everywhere, asking questions about Earth and humans. Back on the Voral, Captain Miller met with Captain Nara to discuss their situation more thoroughly. Your people are refugees, Miller said. It wasn't a question. Nara nodded slowly. Our home system's star became unstable. We had very little time to evacuate. These ships carry what remains of our civilization. And your destination? The Mendari system. We believed it had planets that could support our biology. But now... She gestured helplessly at the status reports. Miller was quiet for a moment. There may be suitable planets in Earth-controlled space. Once your ships are repaired, we could discuss settlement options. Nara stared at him in disbelief. You would share your territory with us? Just like that? Earth has several terraformed worlds with minimal populations. And frankly, Captain, we've been hoping to make peaceful contact with other intelligent species for generations. Your arrival, while unfortunate in circumstances, is something many humans would consider historic. Not everyone shared Miller's enthusiasm. In the ship's security section, Security Chief Verax watched the humans with suspicion. He had served in the military before the evacuation and had seen what desperate species could do to each other. They must have some hidden motive, he told his deputy. No species helps another without benefit to themselves. Perhaps their benefit is diplomatic, his deputy suggested. An alliance with us? Varax snorted. What could they gain from allying? With homeless refugees, no, they want our technology. Those propulsion crystals, even damaged, they're more advanced than anything these humans have. On the second day, the engineering ships USS Horizon and USS Venture arrived. They were larger than the Dauntless, clearly designed for complex repair operations. With them came more engineers, led by a man named Peter Daniels. Daniels met with Martinez, and together they presented their plan to Captain Nara. "We can't repair your crystals," Daniels explained, "but we believe we can create a hybrid system using our fusion technology linked to your existing energy network. It won't be as efficient as your original drives," Martinez added, "but it should give your ships enough power for both life support and limited propulsion." "How limited?" Nara asked. "You won't achieve faster than light travel," Daniels admitted. "But you could reach the nearest habitable planet in our system within 2 months. Communications Officer Zirith had been working closely with the humans on translation and cultural exchange. He stepped forward now. "Captain, I've been studying their star charts. They have a planet called New Terra that appears compatible with our biology. The humans have only established a small research station there. It's a terraforming project still in its early stages," Miller explained. "But the atmosphere and gravity are already within parameters that should be comfortable for your people." Commander Vex looked skeptical. "And Earth would just give us this planet?" "Not give," Miller clarified. "Share. We propose a joint colony. Your people have agricultural techniques that could be valuable on a developing world, according to what Officer Zirith has shared with us." The proposal spread quickly through the fleet. For the first time since leaving their homeworld, the refugees had real hope. Children who had known nothing but ship corridors their whole lives asked their parents what a sky looked like. But in the lower decks of the Voral, Security Chief Varax gathered his most trusted officers. "We cannot trust these humans so easily," he told them. "If their technology can power our ships, then we should take it by force if necessary. Once we have what we need, we can find our own planet, away from alien influence." One of his officers looked troubled. "But they've shown no hostility." "Not yet," Varax replied. "But history teaches us that no good comes from depending on the mercy of strangers." As work on the hybrid propulsion system continued, no one noticed Varax's officers quietly studying the human technology, making their own plans. The future of both species might depend on whose vision prevailed. Work on the hybrid propulsion system progressed quickly. The human engineers had set up a temporary workshop in the largest cargo bay of the Voral. Caridian technicians gathered around, watching with growing interest as the humans assembled strange equipment. Engineer Sofia Martinez directed the operation, her hands moving confidently over the complex components. Beside her worked technician Relk, the most senior of the Caridian engineers. "Your approach is unlike anything I've seen," Relk admitted, watching Martinez connect a fusion regulator to a Caridian power conduit. "We would never have considered using magnetic containment fields in this way," Martinez smiled. "Sometimes fresh eyes see different solutions. Your crystal technology is far more elegant than our fusion systems, but we have to work with what we have." Nearby, Peter Daniels instructed a mixed team of humans and Caridians on calibrating the energy flow between the two technologies. Despite the language barrier, they developed a system of hand signals and simple diagrams to communicate technical concepts. On the third day, Captain Nara invited Captain Miller and his senior officers to share a meal in the Voral's community hall. It was the first formal social exchange between the species. The humans had brought food from their ship, while the Caridians prepared simple dishes from their dwindling supplies. "Our medical team has confirmed your food is safe for us," Miller said, carefully trying a purple paste that Caridians considered a delicacy. Surprisingly compatible biology. Dr. Lisa Wright sat next to a Caridian elder named Sora, who had been a teacher before the evacuation. "The children are adapting quickly to your presence," Sora told her. "They call you the soft ones because of your hair," Wright laughed. "On our world we have animals called cats with fur much softer than our hair. The children would love them." "Will there be these cats on New Terra?" asked a small voice. A young Caridian child had been listening nearby. "I don't know," Wright said kindly. "But if not, perhaps we could bring some someday." The child nodded seriously before being called away by its parent. "They have known nothing but these ships their entire lives," Sora explained sadly. "A planet, with open spaces and natural light. It is hard for them to even imagine. In another section of the hall, Communications Officer Xerath and the human linguist Olivia Grant were deep in conversation. They had spent days working together on improving the translation system. "Your language is fascinating," Grant told him. "The way you use tonal shifts to indicate emotional context. It's similar to some Earth languages, but much more complex." "Yet you learned it so quickly," Xerath noted. "Your species has a remarkable facility for communication." Grant shrugged. "Necessity. Earth has thousands of languages. Learning to communicate across barriers is something we've had to master." The meal was interrupted when Engineer Martinez hurried into the hall, her face glowing with excitement. She approached the captain's table. "We've done it," she announced. "The first test of the hybrid system was successful. We can begin installing the units on all ships within 2 days." A cheer went up from the assembled Caridians. For many, it was the first hopeful news in months. Security Chief Verax watched from a corner, his expression unreadable. When the celebration died down, he approached Captain Nara. "May I speak with you privately, Captain?" Nara nodded and they moved to a quiet area of the hall. "I believe we should reconsider our options," Verax said in a low voice. "Now that we understand the human technology, we could adapt it ourselves. We don't need to follow them to their planet." Nara's 4 eyes narrowed. "What are you suggesting, Security Chief?" "Simply that we thank them for their help, then set our own course once repairs are complete. The Mendari system is still an option. The Mendari system is 6 months away at the speeds these hybrid engines can manage," Nara reminded him. "Our supplies won't last that long." "Then we take what we need from the humans," Verax said, his voice barely above a whisper. "They have resources. Their ships carry food, medicine, tools." "Enough," Nara cut him off. "We are not raiders, Verax. We are refugees seeking a new home. The humans have offered us sanctuary with no conditions. We will not repay their kindness with theft." Verax stiffened. "I am thinking of our people's future, Captain. Can we truly trust these aliens? What if their hospitality turns once we reach their territory? We would be at their mercy." Nara looked across the room at the humans and Caridians working side by side. "I believe we can trust them, and even if there is risk, we will face it with honor." The next morning, installation of the hybrid propulsion systems began on all 27 ships. Human and Caridian work teams moved between vessels, coordinating the complex operation. The mood throughout the fleet was lighter than it had been since the evacuation from their homeworld. On the smallest ship, the nursery vessel, Technician Relk and Engineer Martinez worked together to modify the energy distribution system. "These conduits are more delicate than the others," Relk explained. "This ship was designed for families, not long-distance travel." Martinez nodded, carefully adjusting her approach. As they worked, a small group of Caridian children gathered to watch. One of them, braver than the rest, approached Martinez. "Will your machine make the lights stop flickering?" the child asked. Martinez smiled. "That's the plan. And it should. Make the air cleaner, too." The child considered this. "My parent says we'll see a sky soon. A real one, not just pictures." "That's right," Martinez said. "New Terra has a beautiful sky. Blue, like Earth's, but with hints of purple at sunset." The child's eyes widened at the concept. Unknown to them in the cargo bay of the Voral, 3 security officers loyal to Verax were studying the hybrid propulsion designs. They had copied the plans while pretending to assist with inventory. "Humans store additional fusion components on their engineering vessel," one of them reported. "If we could access them, we could potentially build more units ourselves." Verax nodded slowly. "Continue monitoring their activities. Learn everything you can about their technology, but take no action yet." That evening, Captain Miller received a message from Earth Command. His communications officer, a young man named Jason Beck, delivered the news. "Sir, we've been authorized to escort the Caridian fleet to New Terra. A diplomatic team will meet us there to formalize the settlement agreement." Miller smiled. "Excellent. Inform Captain Nara immediately." As Jason headed to the shuttle bay, he passed the engineering team returning from their day's work. They looked tired but satisfied. "The installations are almost complete," Martinez reported when she saw him. "Another day, maybe two." But as she spoke, the lights throughout the ship suddenly flickered. A moment later, alarms began to sound. "What's happening?" Jason asked. Martinez was already checking her equipment. "Something's wrong with the main power grid. The solar monitoring system is showing massive flare activity from the local star. Outside, the normally placid yellow star they had been orbiting was erupting with energy. A massive solar flare, many times larger than predicted, was heading directly toward the vulnerable fleet. The massive solar flare raced toward the fleet, a wall of deadly radiation and charged particles. On the bridge of the Voral, alarms sounded as Officer Trell reported the situation. "Impact in 17 minutes. Our shields can't withstand this level of radiation." Captain Nara turned to Captain Miller, who had been on the Voral for a status meeting when the alarms began. "Can your ships withstand this?" Miller shook his head grimly. "Not completely. Our shields are better against radiation, but the electromagnetic pulse will damage our systems too." He activated his communicator. "All human vessels, this is Captain Miller. Emergency Protocol Sierra 9. Move to shield positions around the Caridian refugee ships. Priority to the nursery vessel." Without hesitation, the 3 human ships moved to protective positions. The USS Dauntless positioned itself above the nursery ship, while the engineering vessels spread out to cover as many Caridian ships as possible. "What are they doing?" Commander Vex asked in confusion. "They're using their ships as shields," Nara realized, her voice filled with disbelief. Miller was already coordinating with his crew. "Martinez, what's the status of the hybrid propulsion systems?" Engineer Martinez's voice came through the communicator. 6 ships have fully operational systems. The others are in various stages of installation. Can any of them move? Maybe 3 or 4 could manage emergency propulsion, but not far and not fast. Miller turned to Nara. "We need to move as many people as possible to the ships with working engines. They should move behind the local moon for protection." Nara immediately began issuing orders. "Begin emergency evacuation of ships without propulsion. Priority to children and elders." Throughout the fleet, chaos erupted as Caridians rushed to gather essential belongings. Human crew members helped guide them to shuttles and transport vessels. On the nursery ship, Dr. Wright organized the evacuation of the children. "Stay together, hold hands in pairs," she called over the noise as small Caridians clutched their few possessions. In engineering, Martinez and Relk worked frantically to stabilize the power grid on the Voral. "If the main power core overloads during the flare, the radiation will breach containment," Relk explained, his hands moving quickly over the controls. "We need to create a bypass," Martinez said. "Channel the surge away from the critical systems." Security Chief Verax suddenly appeared with 4 of his officers. "What's happening?" he demanded. Martinez didn't look up from her work. "Solar flare headed our way. We're trying to prevent a core breach." Verax studied the situation, then made a decision. "My team will help. We've studied your technology." Martinez glanced at him in surprise, then nodded. "We need to reroute these power conduits. Can your people handle the junction boxes on level 3? "Yes," Verax said. "Zarin Kelv, go." 2 of his officers rushed off to help. For now, at least, their suspicions were set aside in the face of a common threat. On the bridge, the countdown continued. "Flare impact in 8 minutes," Trell announced. Communications Officer Zirith turned from his console. "Captain, I'm receiving reports that the evacuation vessels can't reach all the ships in time." Nara's heart sank. Some of her people would face the flare with minimal protection. "The nursery ship is fully evacuated," Zirith continued. "But ships 12 through 17 have no transport capacity." Captain Miller stepped forward. "Our shuttles can reach them. Beck, coordinate with the Dauntless. Launch all available shuttles to ships 12 through 17. "But sir," Beck protested, "if our shuttles are away from our ships during the flare, they'll be badly damaged," Miller finished. "I know. Do it anyway." Human shuttles launched, from all 3 vessels racing against time to reach the unprotected Caridian ships. Inside the Caridian vessels, frightened refugees watched through viewports as the small human craft approached. On Ship 15, a family huddled together as the airlock opened and 2 human pilots rushed in. "We can take 12 per trip." One called through the translation device. "Quickly!" In engineering, Martinez and Relk had completed their bypass when an energy surge hit the Voral. "That's just the leading edge," Martinez warned. "The main flare is still coming." Relk checked the readouts. "The bypass is holding, but just barely. We need more power to maintain the magnetic containment field." Varax, who had been helping stabilize the power relays, looked up. "The weapons? Systems. They have independent power cells we could repurpose." Martinez nodded. "Good thinking. Can you access them?" "Yes, but I'll need authorization from Captain Nara." When contacted, Nara didn't hesitate. "Do it. Survival is our priority now." With 4 minutes until full impact, the evacuation continued. 3 Caridian ships with functioning propulsion had moved behind the moon, carrying hundreds of refugees. Human shuttles ferried more to the larger vessels with stronger shields. On the bridge of the Voral, Miller received a call from the captain of the USS Horizon. "Sir, we've got a problem. Our primary shield generator is fluctuating. We can't maintain protection over ships 21 and 22. Miller turned to Nara. "How many people on those ships?" "Over 300, she replied, her voice tight with worry. Without hesitation, Miller opened a channel to his ship. "Dauntless, this is Captain Miller. Adjust position to cover ships 21 and 22. "But sir," came the response, "that would leave the Voral partially exposed." "That's an order, Lieutenant. The Voral has the bypass system in place, those other ships don't." As the Dauntless moved to protect the vulnerable ships, Miller caught Nara watching him. "You're risking your ship," she said quietly. "We're risking all our ships," he replied simply. "That's what we do." In the final minute before impact, Varax and his team successfully connected the weapon power cells to the containment field generators. Martinez monitored the readings as energy levels stabilized. "It's working," she called out. "Containment fields at 93%. Across the fleet, humans and Caridians braced for impact. Children from the nursery ship, now safely aboard, one of the ships behind the moon, huddled together with their caretakers. "What will happen to the soft ones?" one child asked Sora, the elder teacher. Sora had no answer. She simply held the children close and waited. The flare hit with tremendous force. The human ship's shields glowed brilliant blue as they absorbed the brunt of the radiation. Inside the vessels, systems sparked and failed as the electromagnetic pulse washed over them. On the Voral, the lights flickered and died, plunging the ship into darkness before emergency power engaged. In engineering, Martinez and Relk fought to maintain the bypass as consoles exploded around them. "Reroute through secondary systems," Relk shouted over the noise. Varax pulled an injured human engineer to safety as a power conduit burst nearby. The security chief's skepticism had been replaced by urgent cooperation in the face of disaster. After 3 minutes of intense bombardment, the worst of the flare passed. Damage reports began flooding in from all vessels. On the bridge of the Voral, emergency lights cast an eerie glow as Captain Nara surveyed the situation. Communications were down. Life support was functioning at minimal levels, but they had survived. Beside, her Captain Miller was attempting to contact his ships. "Dauntless, do you read? Horizon? Venture?" After a long moment of static, a voice broke through. "Dauntless here, Captain. We're still here. Shields at 12%, multiple systems down." Miller closed his eyes briefly in relief. "Casualties?" "Assessment ongoing, sir. But we're alive." As systems gradually came back online, the true scope of what had happened became clear. The human ships had taken the worst of the damage, their hulls scorched and systems severely compromised. But they had saved thousands of Caridian lives. In the engineering section, Martinez helped Relk to his feet. Both were injured but alive. "Your people," Relk began, his voice filled with wonder. "You barely knew us, yet you risked everything." Martinez shrugged, wincing at the pain from a burn on her shoulder. "That's what humans do when others need help." Varax approached them slowly. The security chief looked at Martinez with new eyes. "I was wrong about your species," he admitted. "I thought you had hidden motives." Martinez managed a tired smile. "Our motive is pretty simple, actually. We believe everyone deserves help when they need it." As the fleet began recovery operations, something had fundamentally changed. The Caridians no longer saw the humans as strange aliens or potential threats, but as allies who had proven their worth in the most dire circumstances. And the journey to New Terra was just beginning. The journey to New Terra took 63 days. After the solar flare, both human and Caridian ships needed extensive repairs before they could travel. The hybrid propulsion systems had been damaged but not destroyed, and with careful work, the engineers restored them to working condition. Captain Nara stood on the observation deck of the Voral, watching as a blue-green planet grew larger in the view screen. New Terra. After more than a year in space, after losing their homeworld and nearly dying in the endless void, her people had found a new beginning. "It's beautiful," she said quietly. Beside her, Captain Frank Miller nodded. "The terraforming is only about 30% complete, but the southern continent is already quite habitable. Forests, rivers, grasslands, plenty of space for everyone." Over the past 2 months, the relationship between the two species had transformed. What began as a rescue had become a partnership. Throughout the fleet, humans and Caridians had worked side by side, sharing knowledge, solving problems, and even forming friendships. "My people have lived in ships for so long," Nara said. "Many of our children have never stood under an open sky. They don't know what rain feels like." Miller smiled. "They'll learn. And they'll teach us things too. Your agricultural science is decades ahead of ours." On the nursery ship, now flying close to the Voral, Dr. Lisa Wright was helping the children prepare for their new home. She had been showing them pictures of Earth animals, plants, and landscapes to prepare them for life on a planet. "Will there be dangers?" one child asked, its 4 eyes wide with concern. "Some," Wright answered honestly. "But nothing we can't handle together. Your parents and our scientists have already made plans to keep everyone safe." In engineering, Martinez and Relk were making final adjustments to the Voral's landing systems. Since the solar flare, they had become an inseparable team, with Relk's deep knowledge of Caridian technology complementing Martinez's human ingenuity. "I still can't believe you managed to convert our atmospheric entry shields to work with your technology," Relk said, shaking his head in admiration. Martinez grinned. "And I can't believe how quickly you learned our computer systems. We make a good team." Security Chief Varax entered the engineering section, nodding respectfully to both of them. The crisis had changed him profoundly. Where once he saw threats and deception, he now saw possibilities. He had become one of the strongest advocates for human-Caridian cooperation. "The landing teams are ready," he reported. "First groups will establish the base camp. Weather conditions are favorable." As New Terra filled more of the view screen, excitement spread throughout the fleet. For the humans, this was a historic moment, the first peaceful settlement with an alien species. For the Caridians, it was salvation, a second chance for their civilization. The fleet entered orbit, and the first shuttles prepared to descend. Captain Nara insisted on being among the first to land, along with a mixed group of human and Caridian specialists who would begin setting up the colony. As her shuttle broke through the cloud layer, Nara pressed her face to the window. Below, vast forests spread out in all directions, interrupted by winding rivers and open meadows. In the distance, snow-capped mountains rose against a sky tinged with purple, just as Martinez had described to the children. The shuttle touched, down in a large clearing. The door opened, and for the first time in many months, Nara felt natural gravity, breathed non-recycled air. Cautiously, she stepped onto the soil of her people's new home. The air was cooler than their homeworld had been, the gravity slightly stronger, but it felt right. Around her, humans and Caridians emerged from the shuttle, many of the Caridians hesitating before taking their first steps on planetary ground. Over the next week, more shuttles arrived, bringing people and supplies. Engineers from both species worked together to build the first structures, temporary shelters that would house everyone until permanent buildings could be constructed. Captain Miller directed the human effort, while Nara coordinated her people. They established a joint council to address the many questions of building a shared colony: land distribution, governance, resource management, and cultural integration. 2 weeks after the first landing, a special shuttle arrived. The youngest, Caridian children, those who had never known life outside the nursery ship, were finally coming to their new home. Dr. Wright and Sora, the elder teacher, had prepared them as best they could, but nothing could truly ready them for the experience. The children stepped out of the shuttle. Their reactions brought tears to many eyes. Some froze in fear at the openness, clutching each other for support. Others immediately ran forward, wanting to touch the grass, the trees, the flowing water of a nearby stream. "It's so big," one child cried, spinning in circles with arms outstretched. "Look up," another shouted, pointing at birds soaring overhead. Earth species introduced during the early terraforming. Varak stood watching the children. His usual stoic expression softened. One of the human officers, Jason Beck, from the Dauntless, approached him. "Quite a sight, isn't it?" Beck said. Varak nodded. "When we left our homeworld, I feared these children would never know anything but metal walls and artificial light. I feared our culture would die in the void of space." He turned to the human. "Your people changed everything for us." Beck shrugged. "Anyone would have helped?" "No," Varak said firmly. "Not anyone. In our journey, we encountered 3 other spacefaring species. None offered aid. One attacked us. Another demanded payment we couldn't provide. The third simply ignored our distress calls." He looked back at the playing children. Only humans stopped to help strangers in need. 6 months later, the colony was thriving. The first permanent buildings had been constructed in a style that blended human and Caridian architectural elements. Fields of Caridian crops grew alongside Earth vegetables, the alien agricultural techniques proving remarkably effective on New Terra's soil. In the center of the settlement, a monument had been erected, a simple stone pillar with inscriptions in both human and Caridian languages. It told the story of a fleet stranded in space and the humans who came to help. Captain Nara often visited this monument in the early mornings. On one such day, she found Engineer Martinez already there, looking up at the inscription. "The children have added their own tribute," Nara said, pointing to small handprints, both human and Caridian, pressed into the base of the monument. Martinez smiled. "They're growing up together. No fear, no suspicion, just friendship." "And tomorrow the Joint Research Center opens," Nara added, "our scientists working together to combine our technologies." In orbit above New Terra, the USS Dauntless prepared to depart. Captain Miller would return to Earth to report on the colony's progress and bring back more supplies. But many of the human crew had chosen to stay, finding a new purpose in helping build this unprecedented cooperation between species. As the sun set on New Terra, casting purple and gold light across the settlement, Caridian children played alongside. The few human children who had come with their parents, they ran through fields under an open sky, something that once seemed impossible. And far beyond their solar system, other alien civilizations received reports of this strange partnership. Many dismissed it as temporary or strategic, but a few began to reconsider their isolation, wondering if perhaps there was something special about these humans after all, a species that would stop to help strangers stranded among the stars.